Welcome back to the Nepali Diaspora Network podcast. We're your source for news, views, and, well, those critical insights for Nepalese all around the world. This week, we're doing a deep dive into what feels like a period of just extreme contrasts in Nepal. Really, almost contradictory tension.
Yeah, it's quite something.
On one side, you've got this huge political reset happening, following the Gen Z protests demanding real systemic change. And then, bam, on the other hand, the whole country is trying to get ready for Dashain.
The biggest festival of the year.
Exactly. But the celebration this year is just completely overshadowed by this, well, it feels like an annual thing now, this crippling collapse of basic infrastructure. The travel situation is dire.
Well, that tension, it's not really a coincidence, is it? It's almost become the signature of Nepal right now. If you look at the latest digest, which is what we're diving into, you see three really powerful threads, and they're all interconnected. They basically dictate what's happening right now and likely the immediate future.
Okay, lay them out for us.
All right. First, there's this urgent political push. Accountability, reform, all under this new interim government that came in after the protest.
Right. The post-Gen Z fallout.
Exactly. Second, we have to dissect this infrastructure catastrophe. It's completely derailed Dashain travel for so many, and we need to look at why these road failures are tragically quite predictable. It's not just bad luck.
Okay. Predictable failures. We'll get into that.
And third, we've got some essential updates that directly affect the global Nepalese diaspora. Big things. The new citizenship law finally being authenticated. Some really difficult news about Bipin Joshi.
Yeah, I saw that. Heartbreaking.
And ongoing concerns about migrant safety. So those are the three big strands.
It really does feel like the country is trying to launch a space shuttle while simultaneously dealing with, multiple flat tires. Urgent forward-looking reforms are being announced, but they're immediately crashing against decades of systemic decay, like these roads.
That's a good analogy, actually.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Where should we start? Maybe with that political ground shift. The fall of one government, the rise of another.
Yeah, let's start there. The interim government. So the formation of this interim government, it wasn't some scheduled thing, right? It was a direct response.
To the protests.
To the Gen Z movement, yeah. That unprecedented public pressure, it forced the resignation of the KP Sharma Oli government. And this new administration, led by the former Chief Justice Sushila Karki, who is, widely respected, has one critical, non-negotiable task.
Just one main goal.
Essentially, yes. Ensure stability and guide the country towards holding the House of Representatives, the HOAR elections. That's the big one.
And they've set a date for that.
They have. It's officially slated now for March 5th, 2026.
Okay, March 2026. So the HOAR, that's basically the engine room of the whole political system.
Pretty much, yeah.
So the success or failure of Karki's interim administration, it's really measured entirely by whether they could deliver a credible election on that date.
That's their mandate. Pure and simple.
What's really striking, looking at the cabinet they've put together, is who they've chosen. It looks like a very deliberate, very public move away from, let's say, career politicians.
I think that's exactly the point. That's the core of the legitimacy they're trying to build or rebuild. The cabinet's expanded to 8 members now, and the focus seems to be squarely on appointing professionals, people with established reputations, often from non-political backgrounds. The stated aim is explicitly to restore some semblance of public trust after months and months of turmoil.
So it's not just window dressing, you're saying?
Well, the appointments themselves suggest not. They're quite significant.
Okay, give us some samples. Who did they bring in? Because these names, they really do matter for the national mood, don't they?
They absolutely do. Okay, look at some key positions. You've got Mahaber Poon.
Ah, the National Innovation Center founder. Everyone knows him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A figure really synonymous with grassroots progress, innovation. He's now the Minister for Education, Science, and Technology. A huge portfolio.
Wow, okay. Who else?
Then there's Jagdish Karel, a veteran journalist. He's been appointed Minister for Communications and Information Technology.
Interesting choice, given how important social media and information flow were during the protests.
Very strategic, I think. And then you have Anil Kumar Singha. He's a former Supreme Court justice. He's handling a massive, really complex portfolio: industry, commerce and supplies, plus law, justice, and land management.
That's a lot for one person.
It is. And finally, Dr. Madan Pariyar has been appointed Minister for Agriculture and Livestock Development, another key area.
So, okay, appointing technical experts, people known for competence rather than politics, that sounds good on paper.
Yeah.
But getting them to actually execute change, Yeah. In a system that's often highly political, deeply bureaucratic, sometimes just plain obstructive.
Yeah.
That's another challenge entirely, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Do these professional appointees, do they really have the sort of the political capital needed to push through the kind of anti-corruption reforms the public is screaming for?
And that, right there, that's the central question facing the Carter administration. It's the elephant in the room. They have high public integrity. People generally trust these individuals, but they lack that deep institutional political backing that comes from party machinery. Their power comes pretty much solely from their mandate, get us to the election, and from public support.
So they need quick wins.
They absolutely must use these initial months to demonstrate visible results, show they mean business. Otherwise, their professionalism alone, it just won't be enough to overcome the entrenched interests they're supposed to be dismantling. They are really on a tight clock here.
And the professional focus, it's immediately put to the test, isn't it? By this urgent need for accountability after the protests. The numbers are stark. 74 confirmed deaths, widespread destruction. What's the new administration actually doing to investigate who was responsible for the violence, both by protesters and, crucially, by the state?
They have moved quite swiftly on this, to be fair. They've formed a high-level judicial probe commission. It's being led by another former justice, Gary Bahadur Karki, no relation to the interim prime minister, just to be clear.
Right. And what's the commission's job exactly?
It's got a three-pronged mandate, basically. First, investigate the loss of life, and specifically look into instances where excessive force might have been used by security forces. That's critical.
Absolutely.
Second, assess the huge amount of financial and physical damage that occurred across the country. And third, try to identify the individuals or groups actually responsible for the violence.
I saw in the source material that they're asking for input, not just from government offices, but from the public too.
Yeah.
That seems vital if this is going to be seen as legitimate.
It's absolutely crucial. They can't do this in a vacuum. The commission isn't just asking the Home Ministry for detailed records of losses like damage to the Supreme Court building or the CIA offices.
The anti-corruption body.
Right, the Commission for the Investigation of Abuse of Authority. But they've also opened direct channels. You can email them. You can physically visit their office for the public, for private businesses, anyone who suffered damages, to submit the details.
And they've set a deadline.
They're aiming to complete this massive fact-finding mission and publish their findings within 3 months.
3 months? That's fast.
It reflects the political urgency. People want answers, and they want them soon.
Okay, so alongside this high-level probe, the police, law enforcement, they've clearly ramped up their own operations, haven't they?
Sure.
Trying to round up people involved in specific acts like arson or violence against police officers.
Yes, they have. And it seems the police operations are leveraging a huge amount of data surveillance footage, social media evidence, things like that. We're seeing arrests coming through specifically related to the killing of 2 police personnel, Milan Rai and Udam Thapa. That really shocked the nation.
It did.
And crucially, they arrested a man named Sachin Khadka. He's accused of leading that very high-profile attack on the Kalamati police circle in Kathmandu. Accused of arson, and also, remember that deeply provocative photo, posing with a rifle in front of the burning police station?
Yes, that image went everywhere.
So he's been arrested. Furthermore, these police operations, they've led to the recovery of some stolen weapons, 7 Type 54 pistols, and 33 SLR bullets that were stolen from the Valley Traffic Police Office.
Wow.
Yeah, it really underscores the severity, the loss of state property, the chaos during that period.
And the turmoil even spread to the prison system itself, which just highlights how, temporarily at least, state control really seemed to break down.
The numbers there are just staggering. It points to a severe security lapse during those couple of days. Get this. An astounding 14,549 inmates escaped.
14,000.
Yes, from 28 different prisons and correctional homes across the country during just 2 days of turmoil.
That's unbelievable. Have they managed to get them back?
Well, around 8,000 have either returned voluntarily or have been captured and brought back into custody.
Okay, 8,000 back.
Specifically, the breakdown is about 7,713 from prisons and 341 from juvenile correctional homes.
So that's a huge number back in custody, but hang on, the implication of the remaining figure is pretty chilling. That means over 6,000 people are still out there.
Precisely. 6,494 individuals remain out of contact. Fugitives, essentially.
What does the state even do about that? such a massive fugitive population?
Well, it creates a huge ongoing security challenge, doesn't it? Law enforcement has apparently initiated a widespread sort of quiet tracking operation, but the sheer volume makes it incredibly difficult. And you have to think, many of these individuals will likely head back to their rural homes, especially with the Dashain festival period. They can just blend back into communities.
Making them even harder to find.
Exactly. And we also have to remember the tragic human cost here as well. 10 prisoners died amidst all that chaos, so that adds another layer to what the Karki Commission needs to investigate.
Right. Okay, let's pivot back slightly. Back to the demands that came from the Gen Z protesters. The interim government seems to be making some concrete moves, trying to address the systemic frustrations that fueled the unrest in the first place.
Yes. This is clearly the reform initiative side of things, trying to placate but also integrate that youth voice that was so powerful. And one very direct, very visible move came from President Paudel. He issued an ordinance.
An ordinance for what?
Enabling new voter registration, specifically targeting Gen Z citizens, so anyone aged 18 and older who wasn't registered before.
Ah, okay. Getting the youth onto the electoral rolls.
Exactly. And this registration drive is open throughout the entire Nepali month of Ashwin, so right now, basically.
Okay, empowering new voters, that's generally positive, of course. But is just opening voter registration really enough? Does it truly address those deep frustrations we heard about? Systemic poverty, corruption, the sheer lack of economic opportunity? Or is it maybe more of a short-term political tactic, placate the youth rather than enact genuine structural change?
Look, it's likely a bit of both, isn't it? It's certainly an essential political olive branch. It's a very visible way for the state to say, okay, we hear you. Your voice matters in the formal system now. Get registered. But you're right. Without tackling the structural problems, jobs, service delivery, corruption, just giving the youth a vote might only formalize their frustration down the line. If nothing changes, they just get to vote against the incumbents more effectively.
Right, which might be why the new Prime Minister's office is also trying to signal it's serious about fighting corruption immediately.
Yes, that seems to be the other prong. They've launched a dedicated public grievance hotline.
A hotline. Do we have the number?
We do. It's 985-114-5045, and the idea is for citizens to directly report any misconduct they encounter, any delays in government services, or instances of bribery.
Okay, a hotline is great for visibility, but thinking historically in Nepal, haven't these kinds of anti-corruption hotlines often just faded away? Without real political will at the very top, and maybe some mechanism to protect whistleblowers, don't they usually end up as bureaucratic black holes?
That is, unfortunately, the history of many such initiatives in Nepal. You're absolutely right. The success of this hotline, it hinges entirely on two things, I think. First, the speed and the visibility of the initial actions taken against officials who are reported. People need to see consequences.
Makes sense.
And second, the political independence of the office that's actually processing those reports. It can't just be shuffling papers around. It's a relatively low-cost, high-visibility move, but the impact has to be real and swift to build any credibility.
And there was something else about infrastructure contracts.
Yes. Related to this push for discipline, Minister Kulman Gesing, who's known for being quite results-oriented.
From his time at the NEA,
Yeah, exactly. He stressed a zero-tolerance policy now for idle infrastructure projects. He basically said that contracts for projects that are long delayed, neglected, often held by politically connected contractors, let's be honest, will be summarily terminated. No more excuses.
That sounds aggressive. Zero tolerance. But how difficult is it realistically to execute that when these contractors often have deep, established political ties that have protected them for years, allowing them to sit on projects?
Extremely difficult. You're hitting the nail on the head again. These aren't just simple bureaucratic contracts. They're often interwoven with complex patronage networks.
Right. It's about power as much as concrete.
Precisely. So, to terminate a major contract often means directly confronting powerful individuals and their political backers. Minister Gesing's statement is a powerful signal of political intent from this interim government. But the implementation, actually canceling those contracts, that will be the true test of their courage, their resolve.
But if they manage it,
if they succeed in terminating even just a handful of high-profile, notoriously stalled projects, it would send a massive signal. It could be a huge boost to public confidence, especially heading towards those 2026 elections.
Okay, it's clear the new administration is really trying to clean house, set a new tone.
Yeah.
But all these efforts, they're being launched just as the entire nation effectively pauses for Dashain, the biggest festival of the year. Let's shift gears now, maybe, from the political agenda to the sort of human struggle on the ground, Dashain itself, the mass exodus from Kathmandu, and this resulting, tragically predictable infrastructure crisis.
Yeah, the contrast is incredibly jarring, isn't it? While the political class in Kathmandu is focused on probes and reforms, the rest of the country is trying to get into the spirit of Dashain. Adada Dashain officially kicked off with the Stapana rites. That was on September 22nd.
Explain Gata Stapana for listeners who might not be familiar.
Sure. Stapana is the day the festival formally begins. It's when families sow the sacred jamara, that's barley and other grains, in a dark corner of their prayer room. These sprouts grow over the festival and are worn on the head on Vijaya Dashami, the main day.
Right. And it's also the start of worshiping the goddesses.
Yes, exactly. It marks the beginning of worshiping the 9 forms of goddess Durga over the next 9 nights, known as Navaratri. The first day is dedicated to goddess Shailaputri.
This cultural context is so vital to understanding everything else, isn't it? Dashain isn't just a holiday like Christmas or something. It is the most profound moment of the year for family reunification. It forces this incredible annual massive migration, people heading out of Kathmandu Valley back to their ancestral homes across the country.
Absolutely. It's the central gravitational pull of Nepalese culture. It dictates the rhythm of the year for millions. And importantly, for our global Nepalese audience, the International Panchang Determination Committee, they're the body that sets auspicious timings based on astrology, has provided the necessary tika timings for Vijaya Dashami, the main day of celebration.
This is really critical information for the diaspora, isn't it? So many people try to coordinate their celebrations, even phone calls with family back home. What are the key tika times they announced?
Okay, so the most auspicious time for receiving tika in Nepal itself is set for October 2nd at 11:53 in the morning, Nepal Standard Time.
11:53 a.m., October 2nd in Nepal.
Correct. Now, for our listeners abroad, this translates differently, obviously. In London, that corresponds to 9:17 a.m. on the morning of October 2nd.
Okay, London, 9:17 a.m.
For those on the U.S. East Coast, say in New York, you'll actually be celebrating slightly earlier relative to the calendar date. It's October 1st at 11:25 a.m. Eastern Time.
October 1st, 11:25 a.m. in New York.
Got it. And down under in Sydney, Australia, the auspicious tika time is 11:43 a.m. on October 2nd, local time there.
Okay, Sydney, 11:43 a.m., October 2nd. It's amazing how much global coordination goes into keeping this tradition alive across time zones.
It really is. It shows the strength of those cultural ties.
Like that journey home. To get the tika from elders. This year, it's turned into an absolute nightmare for so many. The sheer scale of the exodus, combined with this predictable infrastructure failure we mentioned, it's just created chaos.
It's a verifiable crisis. No exaggeration. Look at the numbers just from the main exit points of Kathmandu Valley. In only 5 days, between September 17th and 21st, nearly 200,000 people officially left through the checkpoint.
200,000 in 5 days.
Yes, and that traffic absolutely overwhelmed the system. It tripled the normal passenger flow at key terminals like the new bus park. Normally, they handle maybe 4,000, 5,000 departures a day. In the run-up to Dashain, they were seeing over 15,000 departures daily.
Just unimaginable congestion. And the main road out, the main artery connecting the capital to the plains to points west and south, the Narangad-Mughalin Road, that ran into immediate catastrophic trouble, didn't it?
It's the commercial and cultural spine of the country for road travel. And yeah, the heavy monsoon rains, even late monsoon rains, created a cascading failure across its most vital sections. The official reports listed 6 major roadways completely disrupted, blocked entirely, and another 169 roads operating only one way due to landslides or damage.
169 roads, only one way.
But the absolute bottleneck, the worst of it, was that Narangad-Mughalin section. It was hit by repeated dry landslides, soil and rock falling, even without active rain, particularly at a spot called Tuinkola.
And that's stranded people for
Thousands of vehicles, buses packed with families, trucks with goods, stranded for up to 38 hours, some reports said, even longer. Just stuck. Imagine being stuck in the heat, the humidity, maybe rain for that long, with kids, with elderly relatives, just trying to get home for the festival, inches away from your destination sometimes.
38 hours just waiting. Waiting to celebrate with your family. It just speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the annual failure of governance on something so basic.
It's infuriating for people.
We did see some heartwarming stories, though, amidst the chaos. Local community groups stepping in where the state seemed absent.
Yes, that's the flip side. You always see this incredible community resilience in Nepal. Local groups, like the JC's chapter in Achakamana nearby, they stepped up immediately. mobilized volunteers, collected donations, and started distributing free food and water to thousands of stranded passengers.
Amazing.
It's often these local initiatives that save the day when the state infrastructure fails so badly. But we have to come back to why these failures are so tragic. It's because they are, as the sources point out, predictable.
Okay, let's dig into that. The sources call them predictable failures. What's the root cause analysis telling us? It's not just, oh, heavy rain, landslide.
No, it's more complex than that. What's fascinating, or perhaps depressing, is the technical assessment coming from engineers and geologists. Look, Nepal's geology is inherently fragile. That's a given. You've got the young, rising Himalayas, lots of schist, highly fractured rock. It's prone to movement, prone to landslides. That's the baseline.
Okay, so the ground itself is unstable.
Yes, but the experts argue that this natural fragility is interacting disastrously with, and this is a key phrase, unscientific human interventions.
Unscientific human interventions. Okay, what does that actually look like on the ground when they're building these roads? And how does that link back to the political system, the corruption issues we were just discussing?
It links directly back to governance and, often, corruption. Unscientific interventions mean things like cutting slopes too steeply when building a road, cutting them back at an angle that's steeper than the natural angle of repose, the angle at which the soil or rock is stable. This automatically creates instability.
So they cut corners on the earthworks to save money or time.
Often, yes. It also means building blocked or totally inadequate drainage systems along the roads. So rainwater doesn't drain away properly. It saturates the cut slopes, builds up water pressure inside the hillside, and eventually the slope collapses. Boom. Landslide.
Right. Water pressure is key.
And often it also involves deforestation on the slopes above the road, removing the tree roots that help bind the soil together and absorb water. The analysis strongly suggests these poor practices are frequently driven by corruption. Contractors cutting corners on safety and engineering standards to maximize profit, maybe a lack of strict geotechnical oversight from government engineers, perhaps regulatory bodies looking the other way due to political pressure or bribes.
So the short-term fixes we see, like putting up a quick retaining wall after a slide, that's not really solving it.
No, experts say those are just band-aids. Ad hoc retaining walls, clearing the debris. It just buys a little time until the next heavy rain or the next section of unstable slope gives way.
So what are the experts calling for then, if band-aids don't work?
They're calling for serious, long-term engineering solutions. Things like reprofiling the slopes, basically, cutting them back to a more stable, gently angle, even if it's more expensive initially.
Yeah.
Installing proper subsurface drainage systems, pipes deep inside the slope to relieve that internal water pressure safely. And critically, enforcing policy and governance reform. That means insisting on strict geotechnical surveys and oversight before any major road construction or widening begins, and holding contractors and engineers accountable.
So it comes back to governance again.
Absolutely. Without addressing the underlying governance failures, the corruption, the lack of enforcement, these blockages, this Dashain travel nightmare, it will just remain an annual crippling crisis. And it impacts everything, not just families trying to get home, but the movement of goods, the entire economy.
And the chaos on the roads, predictably, it just pushed people towards the only other reliable option, didn't it? Flying.
Yeah, demand for domestic flights just exploded. People were desperate to get home. They saw the high cost of a flight ticket as basically an insurance policy against being stranded on a highway for 2 days.
Makes sense.
Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu reported a 167 domestic flights scheduled for just 1 day last week. An airline said passenger loads were extremely high, running near full capacity. This trend is putting a severe strain on the smaller regional airports, too, right through the festival period.
Okay, let's look beyond the highways for a moment. There are other public welfare challenges highlighted and also other community efforts. What about the health situation in the Terai? There was a cholera outbreak mentioned.
Yes, down in Burgunj, they're still struggling with a persistent cholera outbreak. The latest figures showed 240 reported cases. And what's challenging for authorities there is not just providing medical treatment, but battling against what seems to be a widespread lack of public cooperation on basic water safety measures. Like really basic things, boiling water before drinking or using chlorine tablets.
People aren't doing it.
Apparently, compliance is low, so health workers are having to go door to door, doing persistent education campaigns, really trying to drum home the importance of water safety to contain the spread. It's a tough slog.
And then there's the human-wildlife conflict
Yeah?
in Kanchanpur near the Indian border.
Yeah, this sounds like a terrifying recurring problem for villagers there. They're under constant threat from herds of wild elephants.
Wild elephants. How many?
The estimate is around 30 to 40 elephants, including calves, that migrate seasonally across the border from India's Dudhwa National Park. And they come into Nepal and destroy crops, damage homes. It's forcing entire villages to basically stay awake all night during migration season, trying to scare the elephants away, banging drums, lighting fires, just to protect their properties and livelihoods.
That sounds exhausting and dangerous.
Absolutely. And the villagers are demanding a permanent solution from the government. They're saying, what's the point of farming if our crops are just going to be destroyed year after year before we can harvest them?
A desperate situation. But on a more positive note, there was that story from Parbat district, a really powerful example of a community just getting things done themselves, right?
Yes, this one really stands out. It demonstrates profound community ownership and initiative. In a place called Modi Rural Municipality, a landslide washed away about 2 kilometers of a really vital local road.
Okay.
Government support wasn't forthcoming or was too slow. So what did the locals do? About 400 villagers organized themselves. They launched a massive voluntary labor initiative, Shramdan, working together.
400 people.
Yes. And they estimate the value of their collective labor was around 400,000 rupees. They cleared the landslide debris, repaired the road themselves, specifically aiming to get it open just before Dashain.
Incredible. And did they manage it?
They did. Their effort ensured that family members returning home for the festival could actually reach the village, and also that essential supplies could get through. It's a fantastic example, really, serving as a stark contrast to government inaction in some areas, highlighting what citizens can achieve when they work together.
That's brilliant. And finally, just rounding off this section on people and culture, under the new interim government, the new education minister, Mahabir Pun, he seems to be incredibly active already, making changes.
He really is hitting the ground running.
Okay.
He seems to be leveraging his non-political, innovation-focused background to push for institutional changes quite rapidly. For instance, he's mandated that there must be at least one computer teacher in every community school across the country, directly tackling that digital divide.
That's a big commitment.
Huge. He's also directly confronting the chronic delays in academic results. He's directed universities and the National Examination Board to publish exam results within a strict 3-month deadline.
3 months. That would be revolutionary.
Wouldn't it? It addresses a major source of frustration for countless students and their families who sometimes wait months, even years, for results needed for jobs or further study. And one more thing. He's established a formal, immediate complaint mechanism at CTVT. That's the Council Overseeing Technical Education and Vocational Training, making that whole sector more accountable to the public it's supposed to serve.
Okay, so some real action happening there in education under PUN. #tag5 economic and financial fallout.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the money. The sheer scale of the financial damage from the Gen Z protests is starting to be quantified, and the numbers coming out, they're just staggering. It really highlights the immediate economic hit from political instability.
They are unprecedented figures for Nepal, certainly in terms of protest-related damage. The insurance industry, particularly the non-life sector, is currently bracing for record payouts. They've received nearly 2,500 claims so far, totaling over, wait for it, RES 22 billion.
22 billion rupees,
Yeah.
just from vandalism and arson during the protests.
That's the figure reported, just from those claims received so far. And to put 22 billion rupees into perspective for listeners, that's roughly 1.5% of Nepal's entire annual national budget, gone up in smoke, literally and figuratively. It represents a massive shock to the domestic insurance sector.
And the damage wasn't just, small shops or random things. The losses seemed concentrated on some very high-value, very visible targets, didn't they?
Exactly. This wasn't scattered, minor damage. To give you a sense of the scale of institutional losses, Hotel Hilton Kathmandu alone reported Rs 8 billion in damages. Just one hotel.
8 billion, that's enormous.
Then you have the Ullens Education Foundation. They reported losses of Rs 1.25 billion. That includes damage to 5 main buildings, 3 extensions, and a horrifying tally of 83 vehicles, buses, vans completely burned out.
83 vehicles.
Yeah.
Just at one school foundation.
Yes. And they even reported that student records, educational books, archives, all destroyed. They've had to switch to online classes, obviously, and they've publicly stated they need concrete assurances from the government about a secure educational environment before they can even think about resuming normal physical operations safely.
A terrible blow to education.
Yeah.
And Singha Durbar itself, the main government complex.
Yes, repairs have begun there, too. The principal government secretariat sustained fire damage during the protests, and pictures show parts of it currently covered with tarpaulin sheets, while assessment and repairs get underway, a very visible symbol of the damage.
And the financial markets. How did they react when they reopened after all this instability? Investor confidence must have just evaporated.
The reaction was immediate, and it was traumatic for the market. The Nepal Stock Exchange, NEPSE, it had been closed for 6 consecutive days because of the protests. When it finally reopened, well, what followed was a dramatic plunge, just mass panic selling.
How bad was it?
In a single trading day, the main NEPSE index plummeted 160.33 points. That triggered multiple circuit breakers, automatic trading halts designed to stop a free fall.
Wow. Can you put that loss into context for our listeners? What did that single-day crash actually cost investors?
That one day erased a massive Rs 268 billion in investor wealth.
268 billion in one day.
Yes, and that was on top of the Rs 79 billion that had already been wiped out the previous week before the market closed. Now, to contextualize this for maybe a global audience, Nepal's entire stock market capitalization is relatively small compared to major economies. So losing 268 billion rupees, which is well over 10% of the entire market cap in a single trading session, that signals a deep crisis of confidence.
What does it suggest investors are thinking?
It suggests investors believe the fundamental political risk in the country has significantly increased, and that reduces the perceived value of basically all listed companies. It's a vote of no confidence expressed financially.
Okay, so in response to all this pain, the physical damage, the market crash, the new interim government has tried to offer some immediate financial support, right?
Yes, they've moved to cushion the blow somewhat for the private sector. They allocated a substantial sum, Rs 9.8 billion, specifically for an interest subsidy program on concessional loans.
And who is that aimed at?
It's specifically targeted at businesses and industries that were directly impacted by the protests and the subsequent economic turmoil. Think tourism, hospitality, retail. Those hit hardest. It's essentially a short-term liquidity injection, vital for survival, especially for small and medium enterprises, SMEs, who don't have deep cash reserves. But let's be clear, it doesn't fix the underlying issue, does it?
Yeah, it is.
The political instability itself. That's a long-term deterrent for both local and, crucially, foreign investment. A subsidy helps you pay the bills this month, but it doesn't make you want to build a new factory next year if you think the country might erupt again.
That's a really important point. And speaking of sectors hit hard, what does all this renewed instability, maybe combined with the climate risks we talked about earlier, mean for Nepal's tourism sector? It was already struggling to recover post-pandemic, wasn't it?
The tourism sector is really at a critical crossroads right now, highly critical. Industry experts are sounding the alarm bells, warning that the already slow recovery from COVID-19, which, remember, lags significantly behind regional competitors like India or Thailand, is now basically stalled. Completely stalled.
And why is that? What's the perfect storm they're facing?
Well, it's a combination of factors hitting all at once. First, the obvious political turmoil we've been discussing. Uncertainty is poison for tourism. Second, rising domestic inflation makes Nepal less competitive on price. Third, those severe climate risks we touched on earlier.
Remind us about the climate risk ranking.
Nepal ranks 20th globally in climate disaster risk, 20th most vulnerable country.
And how does that climate risk practically show up for the tourism industry, beyond just blocking the main highway?
Well, it damages infrastructure generally, yes, but it also directly impacts the high-value segments like trekking and mountaineering. Climate change brings more unpredictable, more extreme weather events. Think unseasonal heavy snowfalls blocking high passes, or intense monsoon rains triggering landslides on popular trekking routes.
Like Annapurna or Everest Base Camp trails.
Exactly. When those key routes become unreliable or perceived as unsafe, high-spending, long-stay tourists, the ones the industry relies on, they cancel trips, or they choose to go elsewhere, to the Alps maybe, or South America. Plus, the general instability, both political and climate-related, increases insurance costs for tour operators. It makes long-term planning for building luxury resorts or developing new cultural tours almost impossible. Who wants to invest millions when the road might wash away or protests might shut down the country?
So the industry is issuing some pretty stern warnings. What are they actually demanding from the new administration? What needs to happen?
They're demanding a unified, coherent crisis management strategy, urgently. Experts within the sector are warning that permanent damage is possible here. A fundamental loss of market share to competing destinations, which might be very hard to win back later. That's possible unless the government takes immediate, proactive measures.
And what would those measures look like?
They're talking about things like aggressive market expansion, targeting new source countries, focusing on promoting sustainable tourism practices, which appeals to a growing segment of travelers, and critically, investing heavily in digital infrastructure, making booking systems, travel logistics, information flow much more resilient to both political and climate disruptions. Think better online payment systems, real-time route information apps, things like that.
So it really comes down to coordination.
Yeah. The recovery seems to hinge entirely on whether policymakers and industry leaders can finally unite, present a stable strategic path forward, something that, frankly, has been absent for many years now.
Okay, let's turn our focus now more directly to the concerns of the global Nepalese community, the diaspora. And we have to start with the deeply distressing human story concerning Bipin Joshi, the student who was abducted during the Hamas attack on Israel back in 2023.
Yes, this latest update has caused immense emotional distress, certainly within the diaspora and back home, too. Hamas's armed wing recently released a video compilation, a deeply unsettling one they titled A Farewell Picture. It featured 47 captives they are holding.
And Bipin Joshi was in it.
Tragically, yes. The Nepalese student Bipin Joshi, who was in Israel as part of that Learn and Earn program, he was identified as being included in that compilation.
Can you just briefly remind listeners about the Learn and Earn program? How did he end up being in Israel at that specific dangerous time?
Sure. Bipin Joshi was one of quite a number of Nepalese agricultural students participating in this program. It's basically an academic and vocational exchange. The idea is to give students practical farming experience, often on Israeli farms or kibbutzim, and allow them to earn some income while learning new techniques. It was meant as a pathway to professional development back in Nepal's agricultural sector.
So he was just a student working on a farm.
Exactly. He was abducted during those horrific attacks on October 7th, 2023, while he was working on a farm near the Gaza border, simply caught up in it because he was participating in an educational exchange program.
And this farewell picture title,
Mm-hmm.
What do analysts make of that? Does it mean the worst?
Well, the title itself is obviously incredibly alarming and cruel. However, some analysts are holding on to a fragile hope. The fact that he was included, pictured alongside other known living hostages, might suggest he is still alive. It offers a kind of momentary, grim confirmation of life after many months of terrible uncertainty about his status and well-being, but it's a very fragile hope, of course.
And his family, they aren't just waiting passively for governments to act, are they? They're actively mobilizing international support themselves.
They are showing incredible courage and determination. Bipin's mother, Padma Joshi, and his sister, Pushpa Joshi, have actually traveled to the United States.
To the U.S. How did they manage that?
They received crucial assistance, logistical and possibly financial, from the Israeli government to make the journey. Their aim is to campaign internationally, to raise awareness, keep his name in the headlines, and specifically target platforms like the United Nations. They want to increase sustained international pressure on Hamas and on countries with influence over Hamas for his safe and immediate release.
And that's his father.
His father, Mahananda Joshi, speaking from Nepal, has publicly reiterated the family's desperate plea for the Nepal government itself to engage more actively. Specifically, to lean on countries that might have leverage, like Qatar, to mediate and secure Bipin's return. This family's campaign, supported by the diaspora community, is absolutely vital in keeping his plight visible on the world stage.
Such a difficult situation for them. Okay, switching gears now to policy matters that affect the diaspora. There seems to be a significant development on the citizenship front. A long-fought battle reaching a conclusion, maybe, albeit an imperfect one.
Yes, this is genuinely a landmark moment, years in the making. President Ramchandra Paudel has now officially authenticated the bill to amend the Nepal Citizenship Act of 2006. It's finally law.
And what are the key changes in this amendment? What does it actually do?
The most significant change is that the new law introduces provisions that finally allow children to acquire Nepalese citizenship through their mothers.
So a mother's name is enough now.
Yes. Crucially, citizens applying for citizenship now have the legally recognized option not to mention the father's name, surname, or address on the citizenship certificate if they choose not to or are unable to.
Wow. That addresses a massive hurdle, doesn't it? a procedural and a deep cultural hurdle for so many people. Single mothers, perhaps victims of domestic violence, women whose partners are undocumented or simply absent.
Exactly. It removes a significant barrier within Nepal for obtaining citizenship for children in those circumstances. It's a major step forward for gender equality in that specific context.
But rights activists, they're quick to point out that while it's progress, the law still falls short of achieving true, full gender parity. In what specific ways does this amendment still retain a kind of patriarchal bias?
Well, while it's definitely progressive for mothers within Nepal, activists point out that a fundamental inequality remains. It's mainly in how citizenship is passed down to children born outside Nepal, particularly affecting diaspora women married to non-Nepali men.
How so?
For example, under the Constitution and existing laws, a Nepali father can generally pass on citizenship by descent quite easily to his child born anywhere in the world, regardless of the mother's nationality. However, a Nepali mother married to a foreign national often still faces significant bureaucratic hurdles or outright limitations in granting that same seamless right of citizenship by descent to her children born abroad. The process is often more complex, requires more proof, or in some interpretations might still be restricted.
Ah, I see. So the new amendment solves a major problem inside Nepal regarding the father's details, but it doesn't grant mothers the exact same full legal authority as fathers to automatically pass on citizenship by descent globally.
That seems to be the main critique from rights groups. It retains that subtle or not so subtle bias where the father's lineage still holds slightly more weight in conferring citizenship across borders. So the fight for true constitutional equality on citizenship, it definitely continues. But this amendment is still a very important step forward.
Understood. Okay, and finally, in this section, we have to acknowledge the sobering statistics that keep coming out concerning Nepalese migrant workers. They remain the economic backbone of the country through the remittances they send home, but the human cost is often terribly high.
Yes, this is a stark, recurring reminder of the immense sacrifices and the very real risks involved in generating that vital remittance income. The latest figures highlighted cover just the first 2 months of the current Nepali fiscal year, that's mid-July to mid-September 2025. In that short period, 51 Nepalese migrant workers died just in the United Arab Emirates, the UAE.
51 deaths in just 2 months, in just one country.
Yes, 51 Nepalese lives lost in the UAE alone during that period.
And what are the causes of death? Is there a pattern?
The causes are tragically consistent with previous reports, unfortunately. A high number are due to road accidents, which points to issues with transport safety. Workplace incidents, falls, machinery accidents are another major cause, and a significant portion are linked to sudden cardiovascular illness, heart attacks, strokes.
And why the cardiovascular issues?
These are often attributed by health experts and rights groups to the cumulative effect of factors like extreme heat stress, particularly for outdoor laborers, long working hours, poor living conditions in labor camps, stress, and sometimes inadequate access to healthcare.
51 deaths in roughly 60 days, just in the UAE. That is a profound human cost. What does this figure tell us about the government's oversight of migrant safety? Is enough being done?
Well, it certainly underscores the urgent, ongoing need for continuous vigilance and for pushing for improved safety standards. And that responsibility lies both with the host country, the UAE in this case, to enforce its own labor laws, and with the Nepali government to better protect its citizens abroad. While the report noted that this total number shows a slight statistical decline compared to the same period in the previous fiscal year, honestly, 51 preventable deaths in 2 months is still far too high. It demands that the government really focus on practical measures.
Like what?
Like increasing the quality and relevance of pre-departure orientation and safety training, improving insurance coverage and making sure families can actually access it, establishing more robust channels for workers to report unsafe conditions without fear of reprisal, and providing better consular support, welfare checks, and legal assistance for workers who run into trouble abroad.
Because these remittances, they essentially fund the economy back home.
They do, but we can never forget the human price that is being paid, often tragically high, to earn that money. Hashtag tag CC, outro, and call to action.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, it feels like we've painted a picture of a country really grappling with massive conflicting forces right now.
Definitely. A real push and pull.
You've got this political system attempting what looks like an essential reset, right? Pushing for accountability with the probes, major reforms like opening voter registration, talking tough on infrastructure discipline.
Yeah, the intent for change seems to be there, at least on paper.
Yet those very efforts are immediately tested, maybe even undermined, by these deep-seated, systemic, predictable failures, like the annual devastation of the road network just when people need it most for Dashain, or that major financial blow from the protests that rattled the markets and now threatens the already fragile tourism sector's recovery.
It highlights that the road ahead, it's not just about fixing the potholes on the highway or arresting the people who looted shops. It's about fixing the underlying governance structures, the systems that allowed those things to happen in the first place.
Right. The root causes.
Exactly. And all of this has to be navigated while Nepal is also dealing with a complex global stage, campaigning actively for citizens held abroad like Bipin Joshi, trying to ensure fairness for women under the newly amended citizenship regime, protecting its migrant workforce. It's a huge juggling act.
Absolutely. Now, before we close out, just a quick shout out here to a great community resource, particularly for our listeners based in the UK.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
If you're a Nepalese living in the UK or planning to move there, you should definitely check out the website, belayat.uk. That's belayat.uk. It's a really helpful online classifieds platform, and it's specifically dedicated to connecting the Nepalese community in the UK.
Oh, nice. What kind of things can you find there?
All sorts. Whether you're looking for jobs, searching for accommodation, trying to find local community events, or even wanting to find and support local Nepali-owned businesses, restaurants, shops, services, it covers a lot.
Sounds really useful.
Yeah, it seems like a fantastic resource, built by the community for the community. So again, that's belayat.uk. Definitely worth bookmarking if you're in the UK.
Good tip. You know, this whole conversation covering everything from the political shifts to the economic shocks and the diaspora's role, it really raises an important question, I think, especially for the diaspora listening.
Okay. What's the question?
Well, given Nepal's heavy reliance on remittances, which, let's face it, are often primarily used to fund imports, buying foreign goods.
Right, consumption spending mostly.
Exactly. And combined with the massive challenge the country apparently faces with foreign digital spending, the sources we looked at noted this drain on foreign currency reserves for things like social media ads, software, cloud services.
Yeah, and foreign tech giants.
Right. So the question is, how can the diaspora best support long-term economic resilience in Nepal, beyond just sending money home for daily needs?
That's a big question. How indeed? We all know the power of digital platforms globally.
Well, perhaps one way is by actively engaging with and maybe even investing in homegrown Nepali digital innovation. For example, the sources mention Nepal's recently launched AI-powered social platform called Global Diary. Apparently, that platform was explicitly created with the goal of reducing Nepal's reliance on foreign digital services, promoting local businesses, connecting Nepalese globally, and trying to keep more of that digital capital within the Nepali ecosystem.
Interesting. So supporting local tech could be a key.
It could be one powerful contribution, yes. Supporting technology platforms and businesses that aim to build a resilient, self-sufficient digital economy from the ground up within Nepal. Maybe that's one of the most impactful ways the diaspora can channel its resources and expertise today, alongside remittances. Something to think about.
That is a profound thought to mull over, especially as many head into Dashain celebrations. A great point to end on. Now, for all the in-depth contests we discussed today, for the full newsletter with all the source links, and for links to all the diaspora resources mentioned, including belayat.uk and others, please make sure you visit our website, nepalidiaspora.net.
Yes, all the details are there. And thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the heart of what's happening in Nepal right now.
We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next week.